What do you want to talk about next?
Right. So obviously, since the regular season has ended, you did an episode of the Monty Wolf Show where you break down who the MVP is. And here's the thing. In general, I do think one thing I want to stop is this. When I give my opinion, I'm going to make it sound like who I pick should be it and that your pick shouldn't be it, right? That's the nature of disagreeing on opinion. But I do despise the notion you can mathematically show who the MVP is, or it's obvious and there's no debate. Like, I actually think, by the way, I despise in the NFL and NBA that when you have those MVPs where it's like 100 out of 120 writers vote for one guy. It's like, what are we doing at this point? It's a team game. These are team games. It's not like StarCraft where if Stefano won everything, he has to be Western Player of the Year. Like, this is a team game. You have to ask things like, what style do they play? But if there's one thing I despise, Monty, it's when people switch their logic. So I have an angle, right, which is that Wolf, who, and I've set all this up because I think Wolf's a very interesting character who has his own mind for the game and a history in esports people don't understand. So I'm not on the fuck Wolf hype train. Like, I think that's moronic. It's the same thing you all did to LS. It's the same thing you've all done to every fucking thinker in this game. You're doing it all to Monty because he hasn't casted in years and years. So Wolf has this take that I actually almost find inconceivable, even though I've listened to his reasons, which is, not only does he have Pears as the MVP of the league, personally, I don't even think Pears is the all-first team ADC.
I don't either.
Never mind MVP. Then his second opinion is that the MVP is either Pears or Canyon, and Chovy isn't allowed to be the MVP. Right, here's why I don't like that thinking, because I actually genuinely don't think, I think he's just decided, right, here's the reasons why Pears could be, and he's gone with it. I don't think he's done what I would do, which is you think, what would your rationale for MVP be? And then you apply it, and by the way, if that means it's a result you don't like, that's your rationale, mate. You've gone with that. You either switch your rationale permanently, or you accept that you have a system. So my problem is there's two parts here, Monty. First of all, I just find that bizarre, because to me, if you're going to pick an MVP, assuming it has to be from Gen G, because they only lost one series, it's going to be Chovy or Canyon. They're the two obvious names to pick. If you're not doing that, the third person, actually, I made the point on all these past episodes, would be Aiming. He's like the far and away the biggest carry of any team that isn't Gen G. I mean, look, I think Viper skill-wise is a better ADC, but Aiming has to do everything on his team. His stats are fucking unbelievable. What he does in his squad with lesser pieces. And then lastly, so I've got two things to say here. One is I still haven't heard an argument anyone has made. What did Chovy do wrong? I don't get it. What did he do wrong that means he's not allowed to win? What is this? Because I'll tell you what, and I'm going to say this right now. If Faker played an identical game to Chovy, you would say it was 100% Faker was the MVP, and you'd give all the reasons that Chovy would get. Shot caller, main part, he's the mid laner, he plays the key champions, he's the one that's sustainable, he's the one that get. If Faker played this way, you would every person to a man, say he's the player of the year, he's the best player in the world, and he's the MVP of the league. Then secondly, I'm just going to put this out there, if people think, Thorin, how can you say Aiming? Maybe Viper's better. Isn't Chovy a better player? Doesn't he win more? I am sick and fucking tired of when it's not the player you like. Every single player in every region does this thing, Monty. They tell me, who do you think every year I have to hear is the MVP of the LEC? Guess.
Caps?
How could he ever be the MVP if you're using wins over replacement logic? By wins over replacement logic, Caps has never won an MVP, ever, except maybe one split where G2 was dodgy. Because logically, he has the best players, he's in the best team, and you could put another mid laner there and you could still win the league. So what doesn't make any sense at all is how anyone can use wins over replacement, but every fan does. Do you know how many times they've given the MVP to someone who was in like Quid? That's why he got it. He wasn't the best player in LCS, but I tell you what, 100 Thieves was a bit shit. The roster wasn't very good. He had to do way more than anyone else in the wins, so you gave it to him, right? If you're going to do this, if you're going to give MVPs to other people, because I personally am not like that. I would give Caps it 1,000,000 times. I would give Chovy it 1,000,000 times. I would give Rookie it 1,000,000 times. I would give Knight it 1,000,000 times, because they're the best player on the best team, and they're the best player in the league, in my opinion. Again, what did you do wrong? Is it my fault I have good teammates? If I have good teammates, how am I supposed to ever win MVP by that logic? So I just don't get this angle. Like, I don't get either side. I don't get the people who do wins over replacement because they're ignoring that on this split. Aiming would be your MVP. But I'll tell you what, Aiming's unpopular, so people hate that take, bro. Aiming's not allowed to be in the class of Deft and Chovy and all the rest of those fuckers. Well, and then on the Chovy one, someone please explain, if I asked for a mid laner, what he is doing that doesn't mean he's the best player. Someone explain it to me.
I think the problem with Chovy, Thorin, is that you get that MVP fatigue problem that you have in traditional sports too, where it's like if somebody's been good for too long, people are like, yeah, but this season was like slightly worse than that other MVP season, so therefore they're not the MVP anymore, even though they're still the best player within the league, right? I think you get this in traditional sports and traditional sports voting, at least in like NFL, and I think NBA. NBA is pretty famous for that, isn't it?
Sure.
Because it's in the NBA.
They want to give it to a different person every season, basically.
Yeah, basically in the NBA, because there are only 5 players on the court at any given time, it's a lot easier to continue to be the best player and like win a fuck ton of games if you are the best player in the NBA. Even if you're a quarterback in the NFL, it is just harder to do that. It's just harder to do that. I mean, NFL has other problems, such as like it's actually impossible to win the MVP if you're not a quarterback now, which is just ridiculous, but we'll go into that. But I think in the LCK place, I mean, I still had Chovy as MVP because he still had an outstanding season, even if it was lesser by his standards. I mean, what standard are we going to judge Chovy by? Like, he's number 1 in the league in like laning stats, CS difference at 10. Like, he's number 1 in CS per minute overall. He is towards the top of the list in terms of CS percentage after 15. And the only players ahead of him are Closer and Call Me, who are not even like on good teams. And Call Me played 1 game this split, guys. So it's not even, it's like Closer who's really ahead of him. He's way up there in damage percentage off of 15, but he, even as far as his team goes, he has a lot of great teammates. So he's going to have lower damage percentage as a result. Earned gold per minute, he's top of the league, right? He's
We're going to act like being the best farmer every single game is like just chopped liver. By the way, you all love Faker. Have him be the best farmer in the league. He couldn't do it. It's impossible.
I mean, he also has the lowest death percentage on his team of any. He has the lowest death percentage of any mid laner in the league who has started all the games this season. Calyx is lower than him, but Calyx played 6 games on Nongshim and Chovy played 38 games and has a 15% death share. Like, he doesn't, he wins lane. He fucking doesn't die. You can't kill him. He does a crap ton of damage. He pulls more gold out of the map than anybody else. And that, Thorin, that's before we even get into the motherfucking eye test. Let's just talk about the game that happened this week in a completely meaningless game that he played versus Hanwha Life. He dominated, and he did things on Tristana I didn't even know were possible, Thorin. I did not know you could buffer Poppy ult with Tristana W. I didn't even know you could do that. And he was doing it in this game. His mechanics are ridiculous. You want to see a pop-off Tristana game, go watch those 2 games. He is flat. He is like getting W resets, then W flashing into team fights to get another W reset and like cleaning up the fight. It is very impressive. And Tristana has, for, basically the entire time Tristan's been meta, been one of his better champions, but he's doing shit in the mid lane. Nobody else. Who else is playing Draven? Who's up there playing Draven in the mid lane? You know what I mean? Like, he's doing wacky shit and he is pulling it off. Like, this guy is, I don't know how to say this. Guy's clear. He did win MVP, fortunately, so we don't have to have a scandal. Yeah. But he absolutely deserved
See more
it.
Cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.